What's going on, fam? As always, it's I, Ray, and my co-host Dan Bartels of the New York Post. As the New York Yankees are heading to the ninth inning right now, looks like they might come through with this one unless Bednar fails again. But today is about some of the local news we hear over from SNY from our former New York Mets general manager, Jim Duquette, who, yes, is still plugged in talking on the couch, but his contracts and what he thinks is going to happen with Pete Alonso, in my opinion, is absolutely crazy absurd. Maybe you don't think so. Maybe Dan doesn't think so. Let us know in the comments. We're going to get to plenty of your guys' comments throughout the show. We'll be live for a little bit talking about some of the free agency. We got a couple boomer bust questions. Also, I want you guys to really contemplate as we get to the members only, the questions from you guys. Who would you prioritize if you're the New York Mets? There's a lot of talking around the major league saying maybe the Mets will have to prioritize Diaz or Alonso. Let us know down in the comments what your guys' thoughts are on that, and we'll get to a lot of your guys' comments there. But I want to first, while we're in between innings, get to the comments over from Jim Duquette. Let me make sure I got it all lined up for us over here. That way you guys know I'm not talking out my butt. It is actual news because he is one of the guys that is plugged in. Dan, let's give it a quick listen.
Let's do it.
Welcome back. It's contract construction time. Jim, forgive me. I feel like we've had this conversation before. What might a Pete Alonso contract look like this offseason?
Well, Sal, it's official. This is going to be the first one of many this winter. We're going to put Pete Alonso into the. I don't know if it's. We'll just throw up his contract and see what we think. Right?
Dan, check that out right there. On the left-hand side, you see Pete Alonso's projected contract from Jim Duquette. 5 years, 170 at 35 per, which I think is crazy absurd. Because when you look at the two other highest paid first basemen in all of baseball, they're not touching 30 million. And if I dare say, one was 28 when he got paid, and Freddie Freeman is a different caliber defensively and has proven time and time again in the clutch in the postseason.
We brought this one up before because you got to compare him to the past, Matt Olson and Freddie Freeman. Now, those are older contracts. They're both, I think, signed in 2022. But if you look back, Olson, again, it's a relevant contract. He's 28 years old, 8 years, 168. It's 21 million average annual value. Freddie Freeman, who is a little older than where Pete is now, average annual value of 27 million. I think it's going to be well north of that because the prices have gone up. But I don't think years-wise it's going to be all that much because he's going to play at 31 years old. So the idea, 5 years, 175, it's 35 million. It gets him above where he fits in the pecking order with the Mets. It's above Nimmo. It would be the third highest on the team behind Lindor and Soto. I think that's, along those lines where first basemen are going to get paid. By the way, there's a big drop-off from there. Yeah. I don't think Vladdy, I know the agent's going to say
that's
Vladdy is
contract.
Relevant. He's not. It's a ridiculous contract, like you said. So I think that would be the number that would do it for me.
All right, Dan, give me your initial comments before I absolutely roast this guy.
Oh, man. The Pete Alonso stuff, right? We know he's going to be around 30 million, right? Around. I know Ray might take the under. I'm probably going to take the over.
I think that's fair.
But around there is safe to say because look what he made this year, right? He wouldn't have opted out of his contract in 2025 if he didn't think that he could make somewhat north of 30 million. Now, he would have made 24 million if he opted into that second season with the Mets. He obviously didn't. He let the Mets fans know right away about 30 seconds after the season was over. He let the Mets fans know that he was going to be opting out. And good for Pete. He deserves every single penny that's coming his way. He has earned it this year. He has been, right there with Soto. A lot of people telling me I came out with my report card last night. I put Soto not as high as I put Soto above Pete Alonso. It was A versus an A minus. It's, pinching pennies here, but a lot of people felt strongly that Pete should have been in that A category. So he's had a great year. He's going to make a boatload of money. I think about 170 makes a lot of sense. The appraisals that we're talking about seems to be 6 years, 177. That's what Spotrac has at this moment in time. So I think around that ballpark in terms of money, Pete's going to be chasing. It just depends on the years. And it all comes down to a couple things, Ray, right? And I'll let you have the floor after this.
Sure.
It's the years that the Mets are going to pay him. That's number one. Like, how many years do the Mets want Pete Alonso under contract? we saw last year, they didn't really want to budge more than 2. They gave him that 3. They also gave him that with the opt-out too, but he didn't budge for it. I think it was $77 million or whatever. It was something like not worth Pete's time. I mean, the 2 years really wasn't worth his time either, but he got to be the highest paid first baseman in baseball. So that was very important. And then it comes down to the market demand. Like, forget the years for a second. Like, you have to have what's going to give him 6 or 7 years. And what has the league told us about Pete Alonso, especially in the past year? Maybe after his 2025 season, they feel differently, but he's 1 year older. He's 31. He's a defensive liability at times, and he's a right-handed first baseman with not a lot of speed or position versatility. So it's all working against him, but if the Mets have a suitor out there, they're going to probably match it. The Angels could definitely be a team. We could get to some of those other teams in a couple minutes, but yeah, the Mets are going to need some benchmark to go off of. He's not just going to say, oh, Pete, here's your 6 or 7 year deal. They're going to have someone that hands it to him first. So we'll see if it happens.
Yeah, you know what? I'm thinking, I think the 177, 176 is going to be actually too rich for the New York Mets. And for a couple of reasons, as I'm also watching the game right here. So forgive me, guys, if I'm going a little bit back and forth right now. But I will say this. Pete Alonso, I think the New York Mets are going to max out at 5 years, $145 million. That takes roughly his AAV from last year, $29 million, and stretches it out over 5 years. And I don't see the Mets maybe not even going to that number. We can't forget what happened this past offseason. Yeah, he had a great season, but David Stearns has a top-flight prospect waiting in the minors right now in Ryan Clifford. So I don't think he's going to be in such a rush to spend that kind of money on a first baseman. Maybe spend it somewhere else. Dare I say a Cody Bellinger. Dare I say potentially going after just a DH and Kyle Schwarber, who's probably going to get less years, in my opinion, and allowing Pete to walk. And I can't believe I'm even saying that, but I think he is a priority for Steve Cohen and Mets fans. I don't think he's a priority for the guy who's going to be giving out the checks. And $29 million a year, I think, is more than fair. I don't even think Pete deserves that, because we can't forget he's 1 year removed, Dan, from hitting almost 200. And now after 1 year at age 31, after he had back-to-back down seasons, you're going to pay him to be the high up driven deep right, and Judge catches it on the warning track to end the game. That was within 3 feet of a tie ball game.
Game 3 in the Boogie Down Bronx. See you tomorrow night.
Yep, there you go. There you have it. So now we can get to this talk. But I seriously am thinking, Dan, the Mets are going to have to choose who they're going to prioritize. And when you're looking at this lineup, there's going to be more position players out there for the Mets to potentially go after. The Alex Bregmans. There's going to be guys on the trade block that maybe aren't signed long-term, and that's where I could see David Stearns also pivoting to. So unless the number is what David Stearns thinks it's at, I don't see him expanding. He didn't last year. And then you see certain sports commentators, especially over on ESPN, talking about Pete Alonso, which I think is absolutely absurd, talking about how the Mets openly disrespected Pete Alonso last year. That's not disrespect. The market spoke. The Mets are supposed to bid against themselves and give out a long-term contract against themselves. Literally no other team was involved outside of Toronto. And once they were trying to wrap up the Vladimir Guerrero stuff, you knew Pete Alonso was a pipe dream there. So I actually think the Mets are going to be right around 5 years, $145 million. I do not see David Stearns paying Pete Alonso. Think about this. If it's 5 years, 175, as Jim Duquette said, at age 35 and 36, paying Pete Alonso $35 million a year. That means Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso, between them, will be making about $57 million when they're 34, 35, and 36. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's tricky. And first of all, ESPN trying to talk baseball is an absolute joke. We have ESPN on every single morning at work, and it's just so funny, these topics that they open up with. They spent about 30 seconds in total talking about the Mets, talking about the Yankees, like especially the Yankees coming off their night last night. I mean, they didn't really spend much time at all. ESPN is what it is. We'll leave it at what it is. But yeah, this stuff's so tricky because for me, Ray, like I think it's a fair deal in terms of the money. I do. I know that paying Pete $35 million at the age of 35, 36 feels like it's not the right thing to do. For me, it's the years. Like, you're tying up a lot of years. And the Mets, again, they're not going to bid against themselves. If there is a 4-year deal out there, a 6-year deal out there, sure, they'll probably give Pete that because that's what the market is saying he's worth. The money is what it is. Cohen can outbid anybody. We saw that in the Juan Soto sweepstakes. The guy went up $200 million in a matter of a couple weeks. Like, that's secondary to me. It's really about the years. And I think a 5-year deal makes a lot of sense. It's that sweet spot. 6 or 7 does 6, 7 for all my people out there, but it does feel like to be too much. And I want Pete here for life, but I think it's going to have to be broken up into 2 separate contracts. A pretty comfortable 4 or 5-year deal gets him to about age 35, 36. And then if he's still hitting home runs, which I think he will, this guy's built like a brink truck. This guy, make him a Met for life at that point. Sign him for another 3 or 4-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal, maybe 1-year deals past that second. There's ways to get it done where you can have this guy be a Met till the age of, Pete said it himself, he wants to play till he's age 40. So if that happens, you could see a scenario where it's broken up into 2 separate contracts. But for the people that are saying, oh, give him an 8-year deal, guys, that's not going to happen. I mean, that's just not. It's not a safe business practice. So I'm not so tied up in the money, 170, 180, whatever it is. Like, I think it's fair, but it's just the years for me. And you have to have another team that gives him those years first.
Yeah, and guys, before I get to my next point, do us both a favor. Please like this video. And if it's your first time here, consider subscribing to the channel. We're going to try to bring you all the up-to-date information throughout the season. Now, it may not come as it breaks because we both do have jobs. Dan works for the Post covering sports, and I have my job that I do, so I'm typically on late at night. So we try to bring you as much of the Mets coverage as possible and honest coverage. We're not going to give you the fan take. As you see right here, I am disagreeing with all of SNY and the former general manager. So do us a favor, hit that like button. And I want to say this next. I actually think David Stearns' press conference. Now, nobody's talking about this, but it's something that I was considering bringing up in my last recording, but I'll drop it here tonight. I think David Stearns is preparing us for life after Pete. What is the one thing, Dan, during his press conference he prioritized time and time again? What did he keep talking about?
The defense on the corners.
Run prevention.
Yeah.
Look, Pete's not the worst first baseman, but we have issues. He's got issues. And if you're talking about potentially having a Brett Beatty at third base, who may not have the craziest strong arms, Lindor throws a lot of long hops to first base. I get that. But Pete Alonso, maybe you could look it up while we're live now. What a StatCast has as his metrics, Dan. I'd appreciate you pulling that up on Baseball Savant, because maybe I'm wrong, but the eye test tells me if the Mets are going to be prioritizing run prevention, especially look at Manaea. Manaea and Peterson are not hard throwers. They prioritize ground balls. So does Clay Holmes. So if you have 3 guys who throw a lot of ground balls, what do you want? A very tough infield. And Pete's just not that. He's a hell of a scooper out there. I think he's an average, probably slightly below average when it comes to range. Maybe you could tell me. Maybe I'm wrong. But I would like to know about that because
yeah.
God, do you have him?
He's below average. He's at a 2 in terms of outs above average. That's a -9. And his arm strength is a 5 at 73.5. Not great. Digging deeper into some of these numbers, I mean, his general range on the infield is a -7. His infield/outfield runs is a -8. Not good. The attempts are there, but his success rate's is 69%. So he has an estimated success rate of 2% higher, not a big, you think it would be a little bit bigger of a margin. It's not. So that's unfortunate for Pete. We've seen it, Ray. There's been a lot of throws to first that have been troublesome. You could say on June 12th when he took out Senga, that was the big turning point in the year. The numbers back it up. I mean, again, I say this a lot, and I raised my right hand. I was wrong. I was saying this guy had a potential Gold Glove season in the back pocket. Clearly not the case. But I do think he's improved in certain aspects. His turns to second on double plays have gotten much better as he's gotten older. And, let's be honest, he's the best scooper in the game of baseball. I know there's not many stats that'll quantify that, but we watch 162 games. I mean, this guy he's the best of the best. So it's tricky, but the overall number is not great defensively.
But Dan, doesn't that helps my argument?
Right.
I understand some people in the chat, and Andre, thanks so much for becoming a member, brother. You've been around here for forever. Shout out to Andre becoming a member. And everybody knows when you become a member, you're just a member for life. That's what it's at. The Discord's being worked on. I want to get that active. We actually have way more subscribers and members over on Facebook. I would love to integrate them with our YouTube community.
And look out too for a Metcast golf charity event maybe this spring. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I'll invite Jeff McNeil. I'll call it. My luck. And by the way, I'll put the nugget out there. It got canceled last year. He was supposed to be on the show. And unfortunately, something happened away from the game. We're going to help him promote his charity golf outing, and something occurred, and he had to cancel on us. But that I was looking so forward to that. But, life happens. Life happens. Maybe you saw how negative I was about him and his attitude. But, I'm going to be who I am. But, Dan, I'm not saying you can't have other plus defensive positions, but first base is a huge one. I mean, Pete Alonso did cost us games. He might have cost us Kodai Senga over there. They could say, oh, it went out before. I don't want to hear that. It happened on that play, him throwing home. So I think maybe that was a little bit of a breadcrumb there from David Stearns. Could you see that?
Yeah, I think he was more talking about Mark Vientos at third base. I mean, he was just a butcher. Definitely let more runs in than he prevented, but he's definitely, mentioning Pete in that same vein. Don't get it wrong. So, yeah, it's tricky. I hope he's not preparing us for to see Pete Alonso in another uniform somewhere else, but you could be right, Ray. You might be ahead of the curve on this one, and maybe he was really talking about that.
So let's move on to our next segment. Here we go. I got this over. Interesting. Very interesting. Over from another thing from Jim Duquette over on SNY, talking about potential trade targets for the Mets. Sandy Alcantara, Joe Ryan, Logan Gilbert, free agents, Framber Valdez, Dylan C., Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. For some reason, he didn't include Michael King over there. I don't know why, Dan, but who are you prioritizing on this list as of right now?
Joe Ryan would be a great get for the Mets, no doubt about it. It would cost a lot. He'd probably be the most expensive pitcher in terms of what you would have to give up to bring him in. The free agents aren't great. I know people love Framber Valdez. They're over the moon on the guy. Something's just telling me it's not going to, fit for the Mets. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Maybe the Mets bring him in, but I'm more focused on a Joe Ryan. I think the Mets have the farm system to trade with anybody.
It's going to cost a lot. He's got 2 years of control.
Yeah, so that's definitely someone to watch out for. And then I do think he's on the money with Sandy. Mets saw him at the end of this year. We've seen him a lot over the years. The Marlins have shown, with Luzardo going to the Phillies, they can trade within the division. I think it's stupid. Why would you want Sandy to haunt you for the next 5-10 years? But that's what the Marlins love to do. So I'm definitely open to it. And I think Sandy is still, he didn't have the best year, 11-10 with, I think, a 3.5 ERA, but he showed great starts. He showed very good outings over the course of 2025. So right. Sandy would be the one for me that I think the Mets could go in and really make it happen. And then Joe Ryan feels like the fantasy one for me as well.
For me, I just don't see the Mets trading for a starter. I just don't. I don't know. I don't see David Stearns giving up the prospects. And he kind of alluded to it a little bit in the press conference as well, talking about developing pitching. He brought up, he didn't completely say they wouldn't go out and sign anybody or trade for anybody, but he said That's their priority, developing, and they had these 3 guys that they developed this last year, but they need a frontline guy. And I'll be honest, Frander Valdez, not only because of stuff that happened with the catcher, but he's going to be 32 prior to next season. He's got a ton of miles on his team, pitching in the playoffs constantly, World Series. Yeah, he's a proven guy, but are you going to be willing to give Frander Valdez a 6-year contract with all that mileage on his arm, and he's 32 years old? He's a guy that I could look at and say, I'm nervous he could turn into another Sean Manaea. You look at his year last year, 13-11, a 3.66 ERA, a 1.24 whip. The strikeouts are still there, but a 3.66 ERA for a guy who's 32 years old ain't too impressive. And even Joe Ryan, Dan, people love this guy, and I get it because the strikeouts are there, but another guy with a over 3.5 ERA. The Mets need to get their Garrett Crochet, their Zach Wheeler, those types of guys. And I don't know if I see them available. Alcantara, maybe another year removed from that Tommy John surgery, has the potential to do that. But the only guy that I could see actually doing that, and I know you and I talked about it, we tagged him a little bit, but going into that last few games, Michael King's ERA was in the 2s. He ended up at a 3.4 ERA with a 1.2 whip. He was injured this year, 73 innings pitched, 76 strikeouts, 1.2 WAR, going to be 30 years old. Maybe you get him a little bit on a discount here, but you can't just throw away what he's done over the last couple of years. Ready for this, guys? His last few years. This year, I already told you, 3.44 ERA. The year prior, he pitched a full season, 31 games, 30 starts for San Diego, a 2.95 ERA. His last year with the Yankees in 49 games pitched, 2.75 ERA, and then a 2.29 ERA the year before that. So more often than not, 3 out of the last 4 years, Michael King has an ERA in the 2s, and that's what I'm looking for. Now, you could also look at another guy. A guy that the Mets clearly, Dan, had interest in last year. They made the phone call. Everybody spoke about it. A guy like Dylan Cease. But Dylan Cease is a guy who scares the hell out of me. Dylan Cease this year, 32 starts, a full season, a whip of over 1.3, and we saw him throwing 30-plus miles an hour, an ERA of 4.55. 4.55. He screams David Stearns / pitching lab all over it. Scares me. Now, if you could get him on let's be honest, Dan, he should be the guy getting the Frankie Montas deal, not Frankie Montas for 2 years with the Avs, because you've watched him be an ace. I mean, let's not have revisionist history here. In 2024, Dylan Cease had a 3.47 ERA, which is comparable to every guy we're looking at this year. The Michael Kings, the Joe Ryans, the Frander Valdez, almost the exact same. But what scares the hell out of you is the year before with the White Sox, a 4.58. The year before that, 32 starts, a 2.2 ERA. So he's gone great year, bad year, great year, bad year. That's who he's been his entire career, the last 4 years. There's no going around it. There's just none. The year before that, 3.91 ERA. So he's gone from 3.9 to 2.2 to 4.5 to 3.4 to 4.5. That's what he's been. Now, if you really trust that we're able to develop pitchers the way that they say we are, maybe it's worth the risk. But I don't know. I'm looking around the league. Go get me Peralta from Milwaukee. If you're going to trade for someone to give up significant assets, go for the cream of the crop, Dan. I don't need another 3, 4, 5 starter. We just don't. We need someone who's going to hand the ball to them, and they'll be the stopper every 5th day and give you a great chance to win. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple points there, right? Like, if you really want to swing high, and we've talked about this, I saw your post today. I see a lot of accounts with this name, Skeens to Queens. And Paul Skeens would be the number one option for me, right? At the end of the day, no doubt, probably not going to happen. We all understand.
Andy Martino brought him up.
Right. And same thing with Tariq Skubal. If he reaches an extension this offseason, he's a free agent after next season, so that'll be something to watch out for. That'd be another one. Swing for the moon. You bring in an ace. But the Mets are running into a problem, right? Because we're talking about a lot of the similar names. We're going to talk about a lot of these names over the course of the offseason. Michael Kings, Dylan Ceases, Zach Gallons, Framber Valdez, Freddie Peralta. All of these pitchers, they're like one tick below an ace, right? They're all good. They're solid. They can get the job done. They're twos, they're threes, depending on, who we're talking about. I think there's always room for those guys in a rotation, especially now with Nolan McLean. You can build around him. He looks like an ace in this game moving forward. But you're running into a problem. And I was thinking about this morning because the Mets are going to have to trade some of these pitchers in the same way that they have to trade some of these infielders, right? Vientos, McNeil. There's this bubble building up with all this youth coming behind it, right? The Jet Williams, the Benjes for the outfield. We've done such a good job of talking about that, but let's flip it over to the pitching side because think about who's going to be back. Senga's going to be back. Manaea not opting for the surgery. I kind of think he's wrong for doing that.
Oh my gosh, we got to touch on that in a second. Go ahead, you finish.
So Manaea likely to be back.
Don't forget.
Clay Holmes, another one who is top 10 in ERA this year, made the transition from a reliever to a starter pretty seamlessly. And it looked like there were some bumps in the road. He couldn't get past the fifth inning, but I think Clay Holmes has earned a spot in this rotation. So there's three. Peterson, going to be back. That's another one you could just slot in. So that's not even talking about Jonah Tong, Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean. There's like 6, 7, 8 guys basically in this rotation, and we have to find a way to kind of not have them in the rotation, if you get what I'm saying. Christian Scott, another arm. So for me, I look at it and I say, you got to trade one or two of these guys. Kodai Senga makes a lot of sense. I think you can pair Kodai Senga with potentially maybe a Jonah Tong, maybe a Brandon Sproat, and that's how you bring in one of these top guys. Kodai Senga is a proven pitcher. He has a proven track record. Didn't have a great year this year, a little bit of injury, but you tack on one of these young studs, you can really start getting to a good point in a trade where you have to tack on maybe one or two more supplementary pieces. You'd be able to get a good pitcher back in return. So the Mets are going to have to do it unless they want to go in with kind of the same rotation plus 2 or 3 other guys. Like, it's really becoming a boiling point. And I think trading Senga makes the most sense, but we'll see what happens. You could trade any of these guys. We've talked about it. Anyone not named Nolan McLean. So we'll see.
Yeah, and one name I just seen come up in the chat. You know what's funny? A lot of people were screaming for him at the deadline. I said he wouldn't be enough, and I would have been dead on. How did Mitch Keller finish the year? A guy that the Pirates were asking for the absolute moon and the stars. His ERA to end the season was a 4.19, a 1.259 whip. So I want to look at his stats coming. Yeah, that's what he had. Oh my gosh. The trade deadline was over. The month of August, a 6.52 ERA. In 29 innings pitched, he gave up 21 runs and almost a 4 ERA in the month of September. That would have been the prototypical New York Mets move. You trade. It would have costed you probably one of these pitchers. Maybe not. Maybe Jonathan Santucci and a bunch of your other guys. But that's one thing I think David Stearns alluded to. We keep talking about trading a potential Jonah Tong, a Brandon Sproat, a Christian Scott, a Santucci, all these guys, McLean, those 5. I think David Stearns hangs up the phone the second you ask for pitching prospects. That's where I see it. I mean, we heard him. Think about this, Dan. To think this happened in the offseason, and now it's confirmed by John Heyman, your colleague. Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat and a smaller prospect, and Stearns went click before the guy could finish his sentence. I mean, that's the difference right now between the postseason. Look at Garrett Crochet. He's literally Chris Sale. How does the Red Sox luck out the way they do? They trade for a young Chris Sale, win a World Series, and they very well could do that with a Garrett Crochet with a lesser team. And there's going to be a lot of teams. See, this is the issue. A lot more teams, I feel, will be involved in the pitching market this year. A lot. I mean, you're telling me the Red Sox, the Orioles will definitely be involved, The Giants, I could definitely see be involved, especially after the run they made trying to make it to the postseason. Dare I say the Reds getting involved? A few of these teams that are not prototypical playoff teams that saw, hey, with a month to go, we were right there. That's got to play a little something into all of this. You got to be thinking that's what they're thinking when it comes down to it. So that's going to be interesting. But now let's move on to the Sean Manaea injury, Dan. Hearing this news that he may not need the surgery, and I went back and forth with Met fans forever, it seems. I said, I don't want to hear about the injury. He says he's not feeling anything in his elbow. He's fine. And everyone kept using the excuse of, well, Ray, he's going to be getting off-season surgery. Let him get the surgery, come back. And now we're hearing he's not going to get surgery. This has the writings on the wall to be catastrophic for the Mets, and I'll tell you why. You're telling me that come March, spring training's happening, before the season starts or after the first start, we hear, oh, Sean Manaea is feeling that thing in his elbow again. Mets are going to shut him down. It's got the writing all over the wall. I'm going to clip this and save this. I'll say, remember back in October 1st when I said this? Because that's the New York Mets. Sean, go get the surgery. It's going to cost you no time. You'll be ready by spring training, and you don't have to worry about it. Because all it takes is a little pinch, and all of a sudden, you're feeling slight discomfort, and he's getting raked again, like he did this past year. Dan, him losing velocity, not being nearly effective, saying he's got the stuff in the elbow, and now he's not going to get the surgery. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? I hope this isn't an ego thing, coming into the equation if you're Sean Manaea, because you want to pitch. You're a big league competitor. You're an athlete. You want to be on that mound whenever you can. I hope that's not the case, but you have to be looking yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself and say, am I helping the team when I pitch?
Right.
Clearly that wasn't the case when Manaea pitched last year. So I hope he gets the surgery. And I know human nature tells you to shy away from surgery whenever you can. I think if I said to you, Ray, hey, wake up tomorrow at 8 a.m. and get a surgery, yeah, you can either do it or don't. You would probably say, no, I'm good. I'll hold off if I can.
He's locked into that contract.
But it's the money. It's a lot of things. So, Manaea, if you're listening, get the surgery, please. But, we'll see. We'll see. I have no idea. Just do the right thing, man. Do the right thing.
I'll say this. The Mets going into the season, go in with a 6-man rotation. Don't screw around. If you want to use 2 of the kids, you keep their innings down a little bit. Senga's way better with the extra day rest. Manaea's 4,000 years old, and Peterson's got 1,000,000 miles and broke down at the end of the season. A great way to limit that is a 6-man rotation. You can push your guys a little further earlier. You'll have a little less help in the bullpen. Maybe sign a couple of long man. Maybe just have that for once. This team hasn't had it forever, but enough of us talking. We're going to get to some of your guys' comments. Be sure to smash the like button if you're watching this. That's what helps the show so much. Appreciate you guys as always. We're here through the pain, heartache, and the good times with you all the way up to next season as always. And with that said, we're going to start it off with Ryan. Diaz must be re-signed. I agree, but I don't know. Who would you prioritize, Dan, right now? Say it's only one guy. You have early access if you're the Mets. You can meet with one player. Who are you meeting with?
Pete Alonso.
Okay.
But don't get me wrong, Ray. Unlike Pete Alonso, Edwin Diaz can pick a price, and the Mets are kind of forced to pay it because there's not many other good options. You can go get a Josh Naylor and not think twice. But, that's probably what I would say. Go lock up Pete first, but you're going to have to pay Edwin regardless. So.
Right. So we'll follow this up with where did I see it? I saw Ryan follows up. Ryan Clifford will be here in a year or 2, correct? I can see Ryan Clifford here next year. He blew through the minor leagues last year, and here are his stats for you. The minor league level last year: 237, so the low average. That 826 OPS, 29 homers, 93 RBIs, and 481 at bats. You could add almost 150 at bats onto there. At the if you were to project that to the major leagues, that's 35 homers and 105 plus RBIs. This guy is not going anywhere unless it's in a major deal. You want to get Tariq Skubal, it might cost you him. But I'm willing to do it because I'm trying to win now.
Just really quick on that point, I think it's important, right? Think about who was all called up at the same time from AA to AAA this year. It was Tong, it was Williams, it was Benj, and it was Clifford, right? And Tong made 2 starts in AAA, bang, he was in the big leagues. So I think out of those guys, they all kind of understood from the Mets, internally looking at these guys, they understood that they're pretty close. And they want to see them. I think it was about a month left to go in the AAA season. So that's it. I mean, any of those guys can break camp. I think that's what the Mets are kind of telling us when they all call them up together, and then Tong just breaks through out of nowhere. Clifford had an unbelievable year as well, 29 home runs to his name. So he could be ready. I wouldn't be surprised. He looked pretty good with AAA.
Think about this. In his MILB career, 1,416 at-bats. So you're talking little less than 3 years. He's got 74 homers.
He's a beast.
Next, so he will be 23 next July. I mean, lefty, 6'3", listed at 200. I hear he's closer to 210, gaining more muscle. He already hits missiles all over the place. I mean, maybe they're also not trading him yet because they're using him as leverage against Pete Alonso. Hey, if you don't want to work out here, that's fine. We have your replacement in the waiting. Could be. Steven says, Ray, that's a good deal for Pete. Yeah, it's a good deal for Pete, not for the Mets. $35 million a year is absurd. Absurd. Just is. An aging first baseman over 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. I just don't see it. People forget. Starling Marte was making $21 million, and he's a couple years younger than that. Imagine having him for 2 more years at $35 million. And I know people say, well, money's not the biggest issue. It is. Because when you're going to try to get a Tariq Skubal, it's going to cost you $350 million to get him in here. That's what it's going to cost you. Steve Cohen is eventually going to have a limit. He just is. Think about it. Instead of going out and getting a Max Fried, we settled for a Sean Manaea. That's a massive difference. But you know what the difference was there? The difference was $8-9 million a season. That's taxed at 110%. That's the difference. You have a Max Fried on this team. The Mets are a playoff team. A Max Fried instead of Sean Manaea, it's a lock to be a playoff team. It's one thing everybody talked about. The Joel Shermans, the John Heymans, literally everybody, the Buster Onlys, the Mets starting pitching broke down. That's why they got to get a horse in here, Dan. You got to get a guy who you look at and say, you know what? They're going to, more than likely, they're going to pitch a full year. That's why I'm not totally opposed to a Dylan Cease, but it would need to be Dylan Cease plus somebody else. Because Dylan Cease has pitched 30 or more games in each of the last, I believe, 4 years now in a row. I know it's at least 3, but at least almost 4. Peterson, who knows what you're going to get from him next year? Manaea's already hurt and has the elbow stuff. Senga is hurt every single year, and now you're relying on a bunch of kids who next year, if they start opening day with the Mets, they're going to be over their innings pitched this year in August of next season. That's why you got to go to a 6-man rotation and, dare I say, get 2 pitchers in here. Get me a 2 or 3 and an absolute number 1. And you know what? If Noah McLean and Brandon Sproat or Jonah Tung, 2 of the 3, become number 1s, that is a great issue to have, because if you have to pitch in a wild card, you have studs going in every single game.
Yeah, I want to make a comment. I don't want to make this comment, but I was saying it last night on Spaces, and you guys know where my heart lies, number 48. The only reason I say that, talking about Jacob deGrom, is think about what transpired over the past couple days with Bruce Bochy, right? He's not the manager anymore. He stepped down, and that is a mutual decision because of financial constraints. Chris Young called Bruce Bochy and basically said, hey, we're going to probably prioritize being younger, and there's going to be some financial hardships in the near future. Basically saying it's a rebuild. So do you think deGrom wants to be a part of a rebuild? No. The Mets have the money to bring him in. He's coming off a career year. I'm not saying this is going to happen or throwing this out there as an idea that should happen, but I think it could be something worth considering talking about. We'll probably have a video out on Metcast soon. Probably I'll do the video, glad to. And it's just something to think about because we've talked about it. Jake having a good year, Texas down year moving forward, financial problems. They don't want to pay, other guys to help this team. Why would DeGrom want to be there, for basically not winning the AL Central? It just doesn't, AL West, it doesn't make sense. So something to think about.
I will say this. I'm going after a lot of comments in the chats that as you're talking, I'm going through. We'll get to a couple of them. Andre is talking about how you could prioritize run prevention in different ways. How are you replacing 38 home runs and 126? I get it. But then you follow up, Andre, saying they need to split time, Alonso's time, between first base and DH. So you're going to pay a DH $35 million a year for 5 years? You can't. And one thing, outside of JD Martinez, and because it was only a 1-year contract, they could do it. They like to use that as a rotating thing. Lefty, righty. You saw Marte was a DH. Peak a DH. Nimmo needs time off his feet. That's the issue with an aging roster. You got Lindor, who's another year into his 30s. It's not just gonna, that's the issue. William follows up. He's got some criticism. Pete is a bad first baseman. Poor range, shaky hands, can't throw it all. Maybe worst arm in baseball at first base, inaccuracy, and he's getting worse. I love Pete, but can't re-sign him unless he's a DH. Notice how you say unless he's a DH? The Mets are not paying a DH $175 million.
You don't think
the argument?
You don't think they could phase him into being a DH, like 20 games a year in 26, 40 in 27?
Sure, but I don't think Pete's signing if you're doing that with him. Remember what he said last year? Remember how Pete was almost angry, Dan, at the thought of being told he needs to DH. Remember he said, I'm a first baseman. I'm playing in the field. I'm not saying he wouldn't take a part-time role, but 20 games next year, fine. 40 the next year, I don't think it's not so easy to solidify that, because what if Brandon Nimmo breaks down and needs to be a full-time DH after next year, which I could see happening?
Right. I know. So if Pete doesn't want to do it, that says more about Pete. He's not a team player. So at the end of the day, Brandon Nimmo would gladly DH. He said it multiple times, whatever the team needs. So
let's see. Brandon Nimmo. I mean, he gets 600 at-bats every single season.
Plays 150 games a year.
And I think it'd be smart to get him off his feet a little bit. That's why I could see a Carson Bench and a Jet Williams potentially. I'll tell you one thing. Maybe Texas wants Acuna back. Send us DeGrom. You're telling me you get DeGrom? Look, I know this is hypothetical. I'm not getting involved, Dan, because I know the smirk on your mouth right now. I'm not even looking at you. But if you bring in DeGrom, for me, at that point, you must go get a Peralta, a Skubal, or another number one.
Right.
But don't dip your toes. Clean out the farm system. Bring in him, Tariq Skubal, Noah McLean, Brandon Sproat, and you go to war. Do I see the Mets doing that? Absolutely not. But I wouldn't be opposed to having DeGrom back. I just don't see it happening. I don't think he wants to be here. Does he have a no trade? Do we know that?
Not sure. He might. Tell you in about 2 seconds.
He has a full no trade. He ain't coming back.
Correct.
He didn't want to be here.
I get it. I know. You have to pose the question to him, which I don't think anybody's ever done since he's left in 22. And then 2, I say this often, like Chris Young, a former Met, is the GM of the Texas Rangers. Like, if anybody can open that door, it would be the 6'10" Chris Young. But I don't know. That's a tough one. Yeah, full no trade. So
yeah, which I figured, because a lot of veterans get that.
Right.
We'll get to a couple more before we sign off today. Do us a favor, guys. If you're watching us live or on the replay, do us a favor and like. What about Paul Skeens and Mitch Keller? I don't see Paul Skeens going anywhere. I know a lot of people are talking about that. Andy Martino alluded to it. That's why I did my last video on it. But I mean, if you want Paul Skeens, you're giving up probably McLean and Sproat. That'd be my guess.
Right.
Or McLean and Tongue. It's going to start with McLean. I mean, he's the hot name. Got to get. Would I do it? Yeah. 100%. Not saying that's because I value McLean that much. I think he'd have to be a part of the deal, but we'll see. We will see. Oh, Brian Snicker got he is relieved of his duties. He'll be going into the front office. I think that was hey, we don't want to fire you, so
right.
He's
going into the Hall of Fame, the Braves Hall of Fame.
Williams says, I agree. The ship has sailed on DeGrom. Let it go. June 13th, look it up. No way Marcus Stroman will cost nothing. He said some things that are unforgivable, in my opinion.
What happened June 13th? I don't know. I might have to look it up.
Neither do I. And then we will have we'll leave it off with this from John. If the DeGrom wanted to be here, he wouldn't have left, and I cannot agree more. I know Danny doesn't say it, doesn't believe that, but it is what it is. We appreciate you guys coming out, sticking around during the live. We'll see what happens. Maybe tomorrow night we'll do some type of watch along, something we've been talking about for a while. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Once again, we appreciate you guys so much hanging around. It's like hanging out with a bunch of friends. As always,
thank you guys.
Let's go Mets. Get a freaking ace in here this offseason.
We'll be back.
God bless. Take
Peace.
care.